than
True.
Landry. But you're right. From a
Yeah.
schematic standpoint, it does kind of feel similar, right? He like that outside linebacker 34.
Yep.
Another one here, as we're kind of coming down to the wire here on what are the Packers going to do with Quay Walker, there are other teams that are really paying out top dollar for inside linebackers. The Bucs are bringing one of their franchise icons back as they've agreed to terms with star linebacker Levante David back for more at age 35. He gets a 1 year, $10 million deal with $9 million guaranteed. So it's basically
Bobby Wagner 2.0 over here.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like for sure. And then on top of that, the Bills made a splash here at linebacker as well. Let me get this up here. Ian Rappaport tweeted out. It says, another Bills star locked in. The Bills have agreed to terms with standout linebacker Terrell Bernard on a 4-year, $50 million contract extension. And the reason I mentioned it, it says Bernard gets 25.2 guaranteed in a deal done by Ron Slavin. So obviously roughly half of that deal, 50% of it is guaranteed. If you're going to
off a pretty good year, right?
Oh yeah.
Bernard had a good year last year.
And if you're going to extend Quay Walker, put yourself in Quay's shoes for a minute. Okay. And put yourself in, so we're not mad at Quay, put yourself in his agent's shoes. He's looking at these numbers going, Levante David, 35 years old, he got $10 million, right? For a year per year, basically for a 1-year deal. This guy, obviously, Terrell Bernard on a 4-year, $50 million contract. He's getting over $10 million per year with $25 million guaranteed. Okay, and I know people are immediately going to go, Quay is not play at that level. I 100% understand and agree, but the market is the market. So Quay's going to go, his agents are going to go to the Packers and go, here's what these linebackers are getting. So what would the number be for Quay? That's the reason I bring it up. How do you guys feel about Quay? What would it be for Quay? Are you going to crack the 10 million mark, as Chris N says here? Goot will give Quay 10 plus million, LOL. It kind of feels like they will. And, the closer that we get here, now obviously immediately following the draft, we'll see if they hit him with the 5th-year option. I think there's little to no chance that Quay gets that 5th-year option with it being over $20 million. That would make no financial sense. The Devontae Wyatt one's the one that I would feel like would make the most sense. I hope neither of them happen, but I don't know, man. It just, if you're willing to 5th-year option Darnell Savage, I kind of feel like they're probably going to slap it on Devontae Wyatt, even though they may just use it as a bridge, right, to kind of bridge the next contract. And with it being the fully guaranteed, that's where you can kind of move that money around and kick it on down the road as well. As Chris N says here, donuts. Chris, right now, if I had to put a percentage on it, just the way I'm feeling about this offseason, where we're at, I would say you're probably 70% likely to win that bet. And I think that that's a good thing for Packer fans. Chris said it's a good thing for me. Tell you that. If you guys don't know, if you're hearing my voice, you don't know what we're talking about. We bet a couple dozen donuts. I said that I thought Goody would franchise tag at least 5th-year option one of those two players, Quay Walker or Devontae Wyatt. With Quay's, it's a little more, a little more complicated because there's edge defenders that are grouped in as linebackers in a 34 defense, and their number is astronomical as opposed to just traditional inside stack backers. But yeah, I'm hoping they don't 5th-year option them though, because I really think you could spend that money in a better spot. Man, I like Devontae Wyatt. I just don't see him as a top 10 interior defensive lineman. And I feel like when you hit a 5th-year option on a guy, that's kind of what you're saying. We expect him to be one of the best. Great pass rusher, not so strong against the run. What's y'all's take on it, though? Everything we just covered there. We covered a lot of the bases there.
I mean,
talking about Quay just gets me excited, looking forward to, him and Coop on the field for the bulk of snaps. It's going to be great to see that. Kind of waited for that last year. We didn't get to see that very much. But I'm with you. I think Goody probably gets a deal done with Quay, and I don't know, 3 or 4 year deal, something like that. Some guaranteed money. Try to make everyone happy, I guess. I'm with you. I think if anyone's going to get that option, it's probably going to be Devontae Wyatt.
Yeah.
I think the Packers may be more open to drafting / signing more linebackers than maybe we think, because I mean, when they re-signed McDuffie, it made you think, okay, we not exactly sure what our floor is. Holmes just said a good thing too. We can't forget about Hopper, but I just, for some reason, I feel like they may not trust the room that they have right now. And Prince brings up a good point that if Jihad Campbell falls to 23, would that be what we need? I'd be totally pumped about that. I got also maybe in the third or fourth round guys like Danny Stutzman or Teddy Buchanan or even a Jalen Walker later in the rounds. He's more of a tweener guy, but I would like us to take maybe at least 1 or 2 stabs at the linebacker room just to try to build that depth. What happens if we strike gold on another Edgerrin Cooper and we've got, if you had Quay, Coop, and then plug in any other guy. If Hopper takes a step, that's great. But if you had 3 studs at linebacker, I don't even remember the last time we had 1 stud at linebacker, a real stud. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and we're picking at 23, Tim. Jihad Campbell is 22 on our board. Now, we did not have Quay on our radar other than the rumors of he's skyrocketing up boards that year of the draft. With Jihad Campbell, and Quay was a physical freak, athletic freak, right? Jihad Campbell, he scored a 9+ RAS. He got the maximum bonus for us, but he definitely has better tape than Quay did, if that makes sense. If Jihad Campbell's sitting there at 23, and again, you don't have to make the decision on Quay. You just got to make the 5th-year option decision on Quay by whatever it is, the first week of May, last week of April, whatever it is. If you decide, okay, we're going to let him play out this contract or at least get into next year, and if it really clicks with Quay, year 2 of Jeff Hafley's defense, then you extend him, awesome. But if you go get Jihad Campbell with the 22nd pick, and this dude comes out and he plays like Edgerrin Cooper did, right off the bat, and then you don't have to extend Quay. You're set. You got your 2 backers, and they're both on rookie contracts. That's a wild thing to think about there. But again, man, Quay comes out, man, and it clicks this year because it started to click a little bit last year. It was only like 2 or 3 games. I don't want to misspeak here, but it was just like 2 or 3 games where it was like, oh, look at Quay here, because our fans they've been as critical of Quay as any fan base. When I say our fans, I mean us, our fan base, us, me, Jacob, Tim, everybody that's watching the show, us as fans collectively have been pretty critical of Quay at times, but you got to take into consideration 2 or 3 games. He looked good. Other than that, it's been rough at times. You know what I'm saying? And unless you're going to use him as that vertical seam cover guy, right? If that's predominantly what he does, I think, heck yeah, we'll bring him back. But it's obvious that they're wanting to mix and match what he does. Does that make sense?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Totally.
So Jihad Campbell at 23, I would be okay with. The board would suggest that's all right. Now you go back to, why did we lose to the Eagles? Why did we lose to the teams that we lost to? A lot of it had to do with the trenches, interior on offense. We don't have a center, right? So we got to shore that up. If you go and add another piece on defense, which there's definitely precedent there from Goody, how does that help us get over the hump beating the Eagles? That's really what it comes down to right now. The Eagles is the team we got to get by in the NFC. And every decision you make, good GMs in the past, good owners in the past, that's how they approach things. It was, all right, this is the team in the division we've got to beat. How do we do that, right? Like the AFC West, it's constantly, how do we get past Pat Mahomes? Well, teams figured out how to slow down Pat Mahomes in that offense last year. Lo and behold, Spags has got that defense humming. So it's a constantly changing thing for sure. So let's see here. Ron Sample, I think having Cooper full-time next to Quay full-time will help unlock Quay. That's a good point too. Cooper playing next to Quay as opposed to Devondre Campbell, big difference. Maybe that puts a little more confidence in Quay that he could just turn it loose, shoot a shot rather than, constantly kind of trying not to get beat, big. Christian
plays kind of tentatively, right? We've talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Quay looks like a guy just trying not to make a mistake out there.
Yep.
And when you play like that, you end up making mistakes. And so I think him being fast and free and loose and, playing with some confidence would definitely help in the long run.
Isn't that crazy too? Like we saw the 2 opposite ends of the spectrum, like you talked about with Quay. The hesitation gets caught up in the wash, gets completely either overrun or underrun on the play, gets ragdolled, or as Coop just one step and he goes. Like you saw it in his college film too. It was one step, read, diagnose, shoot the human meat missile, and he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the luxury of Quay calling the defense, though. You know,
Right.
Quay's got the dot, so I can see
Exactly.
maybe where Quay gets those tendencies, right? His job, he's got to call that play, and he's got to know where everyone's supposed to be, where I'm supposed to be, and then by the time that ball snapped, oh yeah, by the way, I have to play linebacker as well, and maybe that's what's kind of putting Quay in that, you know, having that step of hesitation, you know.
Which goes back to our original conversation when they drafted him. Like, you drafted an athletic freak. You didn't draft someone who just played 4 years as a mock backer in a college program. You know, they let Dre, if I remember correctly, Dre wore the green dot the first year, and Quay looked pretty decent as a rookie, right? Like, okay, this guy, you know, he can attack the football. Then the next year you flip it, put the green dot on him, and he takes a step back. I think you're trying to ask too much from a guy that wasn't a traditional just mock backer. You know, He's built for it. There's no doubt about it. He's got the height and the athleticism. But Chris N says Quay's not worth $10 million, in my opinion. I think a lot of people would agree with that. Coach Lynn, I keep coming back to what McKinney had to say about Quay. He was bragging on Quay, remember?
Yep.
So
very true.
You know, pumping up your teammate, or is Xavier going, boy, we get this dude back healthy, our defense is really going to be humming? Could be the case. I like to take people for what, you know, for the, you know, what they say and just assume they're telling the truth. So, Prince in the chat, Hopper showed some meat missile tendencies in the preseason.
Here's a guy.
And keep in mind, is he a third round pick, guys?
I believe so.
That's not like, you know, that's not a fifth round pick. You know what I mean? That's not a seventh round pick. That's hey, this dude, we expect him to be on the field sooner rather than later. So maybe he can get that together.
Was Hopper at Missouri? Am I thinking correctly?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Pretty sure. Yeah.
Okay.
And he was one of only 6 players that we had as the perfect fit for the Packers. He and Oladapo were 2 of those 6, and the Packers obviously took them out of, what was it, 200 out of maybe 250 prospects. So, a couple other things real quick. We'll go rapid fire and get out of here. Jordan Schultz tweeted this out. You guys know this is one of the free agents that I said I'd be interested in him. Byron Murphy out of Minnesota, cornerback, is poised to hit the open market on Monday when the legal tampering period begins, and he's anticipated to have a strong market. 27-year-old coming off a Pro Bowl season and has totaled 9 interceptions over the last 2 years for the Vikings. Again, I'm not saying you overpay for him, but he was one of the few corners that I'd be okay with having him on the Packers for the right price. But I want to say his market value will probably get a little out of hand. What do you guys think about Byron Murphy? What's the number you would put on him? If you don't want him, just say no, don't want him. But if you would like to have him, what do you think is the max you'd pay for someone like Byron Murphy?
I'll just real quick. 2019, his grades from there: 48.3, 64.7, 58.5, 66.7, 58 flat, and this last year 73.4. I don't.
One of these don't belong, right?
He's 27 years old. He's going to be demanding, it sounds like, quite a bit of money. I'm kind of off on that.
Okay.
Paulson Adebo.
Huh? You like Paulson Adebo? Is that what you said?
I like that for the money.
You're not the only one to say that. And every time I've dove into it, I was like, I must be in the minority there for sure. Tim, what do you think about Byron Murphy, man? Would you be interested? I'm trying to see where he ranks.
I'm not opposed to him. I can look past my seething hatred for anybody in purple. But that being said, though, someone's going to overpay for him, and it shouldn't be the Packers. That's just what I think. 27 years old, you got to be thinking, you know, put yourself in a 27-year-old, you know, DB's shoes here. He's going to try and get paid here, you know, the best he can. And I just I'm with Jacob. I'm not it's less attractive to me. If he would do a team-friendly deal, you know, let's say Jaws moved and, you know, we're looking to add at that position. Now maybe I'm interested, but right now, face value, no. I think someone's going to overpay for him.
Here's what's crazy. Jair Alexander last year, passer rating when targeted, 77.6. Byron Murphy, 75.6. He had a better passer rating when targeted than Jair Alexander. Carrington Valentine sitting at the 69 spot, man. That's really impressive. Kendall Fuller, we talked about him. His passer rating when targeted, 89.8, worse than both. Keyshawn Nixon's passer rating when targeted, 101.2 because of the tutters.
Jeez.
So if you were to go get Byron Murphy right now, he would definitely be your number one corner. But if you do that and you play the better player as of 2024, which was Carrington Valentine, now Keyshawn Nixon goes to the bench or has to compete for the slot spot again. However you
lucky
look at
that,
that.
Jan.
The number I would put on Byron Murphy that I would be okay with, about $10 million. I'd go for it for $10 million. 3-year deal, get out of it after 2, stabilize the corner room. This is if Ja isn't coming back, of course, right? On paper, it would look like an improvement other than PFF grades. And that's why, like, as you read the PFF grades, Jacob, I'm going, man, that doesn't sound like somebody I was interested in. And then I go look at the passer rating target. Oh, that's what it was. So who do you want to trust there, right? I like to take them both into account. That's why if they were both solid numbers, yeah, let's pay top corner money for them. Let's go get him. The fact that one's solid and the other ain't. And when I say solid, it's not like he was one of the better, corners. It wasn't like he was dominant. I mean, that passer rating when targeted was 41st best in the league, which is a solid.
Great.
It's a starting cornerback number, but not a number one corner. And that's why the $10 million obviously is not number one corner money. That's just like wide receiver cornerback money is just crazy, man. Crazy, outrageous. So, all right, there's Byron Murphy. I think we're good. I think we're pretty well caught up. We got some other.
Good point from Ron Sandville. Murphy benefited from all the Vikings pressure. He's average.
That's a good point.
Yep.
Yeah. They did get after the quarterback, didn't they?
Yep.
Okay.
Make it a little easier to play downhill as a DB, right? When you've got a quarterback running for his life all the time.
Yeah. Two-Tone says, if I'm not mistaken, isn't Hafley the DB whisperer? Get him anybody in that room. Yeah, that's the thing that's so frustrating about Ja is
Yes.
I expected him to be like, take the next step under Hafley. And it wasn't like Ja was bucking it. Like he was embracing it. He was at all the offseason stuff. Him and Xavier McKinney were lockstep. And to take a step back and then, of course, the injury and, all that stuff. It's just frustrating. It feels like if anybody was going to truly unlock it and get that superstar potential back out of Ja, it would have been Haf. It feels like he's doing that with Carrington. I'm telling you, man, guys, go back and watch Carrington State this year. Especially down the stretch when Ja, obviously as Ja got hurt and Carrington got more and more reps, that dude played solid. I think we got a good corner. I think we got a solid number 2 corner there. So now let's go find that number 1 corner of the future, if indeed that's not going to be Ja. But I wouldn't rule out Jair coming back either, man.
I can't get the idea out of my head that Jair plays on emotion, plays with ego, almost to the point where it overpowers what he does. Like his I think it controls him. I really do. And I think that when Xavier got brought here and when guys like Carrington and Nixon and started getting a little more attention and Ja kind of faded into the background, I can't get out of my head that I feel like that really messed with him personally. And he's used to being the big guy, being the rooster, the big cock of the walk kind of guy. I just feel like that he maybe right now is just having that little man syndrome where he thinks like, why aren't they talking about me? Why am I not? Like Xavier's more of the team rah-rah guy, like whatever we got to do to win. We saw that mentality with Jacobs. We see that with a lot of like Rashawn Gary. It feels like Ja is more focused on himself. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah. Now, I mean, listen, I can understand how you feel like that. I also understand the whole, trying to see it from Ja's perspective too, and being frustrated that, you're missing all that time and not being healthy and not being able to play the way you want to play. That's the other thing.
Things could be a lot worse. I could be a Bears fan.
Siggy in the chat says, how much cap space do we have? So I'll try to break it down for you, because when people hear cap space, they think this is the number, right? It's like, top 51 cap space, it says 43.2 million, right? You go through, you get all your dead money off the books, your draft pool, as it sits right now with the 23rd pick, 54, 87, 123, 160, 200, 239, and 251 is going to equate to a cap hit of 9.9 million, with the top 51 aspect being 4 million flat. And what I mean by that is only the top 51 highest cap hits on your roster count toward the cap. So even though you got a 53-man roster, only 51, the top 51 count towards the cap. So you're looking at a cap hit there within the top 51 of 4 million flats, what it's showing, or a total of 9.9. Now, when you go on down and you take everything into consideration, 279 million is the salary cap. The rollover cap that you rolled in from 2024 was 15.1 million. That was ninth most in the league, by the way. The adjusted salary cap is now 294.3 million. The active roster, you got 244 million tying it up. You got 18.3 million in dead money. That's dead cap hits where you moved on from players, right? So cap allocations 262.8, which brings you to cap space, everything 31.4. But when you throw in the top 51 cap space, it's 251 million, with the cap space being a top 51 of 43.2. So all that being said, the best way to look at it, you got to have about $5 to $7 million operating money as well. Right now, a good safe number for me is we're sitting at right at about 30 million. That's playing it very, very safe. Now, you got potentially, you got a lot that you could potentially restructure. So it doesn't mean you don't have extra money to spend in free agency if you want to go ham in free agency. That's where you can restructure the contracts of like Rashawn Gary, Jair Alexander, Jordan Love, Elton Jenkins, Xavier McKinney, Kenny Clark, and Josh Jacobs. That's not saying asking them for a pay cut. That's simply converting, base salary and roster bonus to signing bonus and being able to spread that out creatively to free up more cap. So
is that what you're just touching on here? Ron says Packers have restructures available of 74 million, according to Ken.
Yeah. See the numbers I came up with, and whoever Ken is, I'm sure he does things differently. That's cool. I like to undershoot. I don't like to go max. That sounds like that would be maximum restructure. Everybody that you could restructure, you can pull that much out. I like to keep it about 10 million shy of that. So the number I've got is somewhere between 64 million and 32 million. So if you want to get crazy aggressive, you could reach 64 million. If you wanted to kind of play it a little more conservative, you got 32 million, somewhere around there. Now, with that being said, this isn't quite the free agency class that you want to get aggressive with, in my opinion. I don't think it's like crazy stacked. But when you throw in all of the trade opportunities, that's where it gets interesting. Your Trey Hendricksons, your Myles Garretts, your, of course, DK Metcalf being talked about. But think about this. With DK Metcalf, if you were to go trade for him and you do agree to a $30 million per on average annual value, that first year is going to be significantly lower, but the bill is going to come due at some point, right? You got to ask yourself, theoretically speaking, because across the board, that's your average annual value for DK, and it's not going to go down as you go through, right? You're going to pay the piper at some point, depending on the guaranteed money. We got 32 million in cap space, right? Let's just call it 30 million. Are you willing to wipe all of that out completely for DK Metcalf?
No.
That's the issue I got. Again, it wouldn't apply this year, but at some point, you're still, coming up to. So,
what would be an interesting topic is I was listening to either DJ or one of the other podcasts, and they talked about how if the Bengals were to go and try to get Hendrickson back, they paid, or they franchised our guy that we're looking after there, and if they paid Chase, that they would be one of the only teams in NFL history, if not the only team, with their top 4 paid players would be over 50% of the team's allocated cap space. It'd be cool to see which other teams are even in that running. Like if we took everybody's top 3 or top 4 paid players and see where the Packers rank among that, I think that'd be an interesting exercise to see. I don't know if that's something maybe the chat can help us out with going forward into a different episode, but to me, paying 4 players over 50% of your team's net worth or your team's cap space is a little insane, but I guess it depends on who those 4 players are. You know what I mean? So it's an interesting dynamic. And then also, if you're a member of that team, 53 guys, 49 of them are all looking around at each other like, God, I wish I could be in that top 4 range. Does that
right?
Does that breed some sort of ill? And I mean, you can't tell me that guys on the Browns aren't looking around and looking at each other like, Deshaun Watson is really making this much money. We're sitting here scraping to get our paychecks, and they're still paying Deshaun Watson like unbelievable money.
Yeah, and number one Packer fan, I saw $49 million in cap space. Is that not right? Sorry, I just dropped in. You're good, man. The rule of thumb here, guys, like this is where a lot of people screw up and they buy into the doom and gloom and this and that. It's like we could have anywhere from 32 million if you want to roll a bunch in the next year or whatever. You know what I mean? And like be able to maximize your opportunity of cutting cap next year or being more aggressive next year. Or you can go into the 64 million range. Don't get too caught up in, do we have 35 million or 45 million? You know what I mean? I'm telling you, there's so much flexibility with the cap. It's time sensitive. I'm not one of these, the cap is fake guys. It's very time sensitive. It's real in that aspect. But you can damn near make just about anything work in the cap.
I was going to say, it's fungible.
Yeah. Whatever that means. I'm too stupid to realize what that means. But let's see here. So we hit that. You asked the percentage, right, Jacob? Here
yes,
we go.
Sir.
Wish we could get this on the phone. I don't know what's going on with the screen today. It's like it keeps changing. There, that's a little bit better. Okay, so in terms of cap hit percentage, Jordan Love this year is 10.6%. Okay, Rashawn Gary is 9.2%. Jair Alexander is 8.9%. Kenny Clark is 7.9%. You said top four is what you wanted to know?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so our top four comes to 19, 27, $34 million. And you said theirs was 50 million or no, 50% of
it was
the cap.
over
right?
50% of the cap, right?
Yeah. So yeah, our percentage, I apologize, is 27, about 30 some percent of the cap.
Yeah.
So significantly lower. Like if we were to go to the Bengals, since you mentioned that, right? Let's go ahead and just hit it real quick and we'll see what it is this year. So Joe Burrow is 16%, T Higgins is 9%, Jamar Chase is 7%. And Trey Hendrickson is 6%. So their number is, what would that be? 25, 32, 38 million or 38%.
That's before paying any of these guys really what they're owed
Right.
so far. So
Yep.
do you think when you go back to the Packers, and again, obviously I'm a Packer fan. You guys know that.
Mhm.
I look at that top four and I think that there's an argument to say that not a single one of them deserves the money that they're being paid. And I hate saying that because I'm a diehard Packer fan.
Mhm.
The Jordan Love thing, I think, has a big question mark, an asterisk there. You had to pay him that money, or otherwise, it's just what the market was going for. Rashawn Gary, you could argue, since he's got the money, has fallen off a cliff. Jair, same thing. Kenny Clark, same thing times two.
Mhm.
That to me makes me upset. You look at the next four guys that are getting paid: Elton Jenkins, Josh Jacobs. It's just, to me, it feels like we're putting assets and money into the wrong players. And
Now, let me ask you this, Jacob. Let me ask you this. If Xavier McKinney, Elton Jenkins, Josh Jacobs, and Keyshawn Nixon were in the top four, wouldn't you be saying the same thing about at least two of those guys? You'd be going, Keyshawn ain't worth that.
Well, 100%. But that, I mean,
right. Elton ain't worth that. Let's be honest. Elton wouldn't be worth 25.7 million.
But that's my point. He's not getting paid that. So
right. But somebody's going to get paid it, whether we think these players should or not. That's how it works. That's the market. So here's what I'm trying to say. Jordan Love, for instance, 29.6 million, right? You had an option to not re-sign him. Are you saying that's what we should have done?
No. And I said specifically with Love that was one that we had to do it. We had to do it.
So Rashawn Gary,
he was the best guy around.
Rashawn Gary, if you didn't re-sign him and you let him walk, right, you would be missing your sack leader and your run stop leader and your highest graded defender on defense other than Xavier McKinney, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So are you saying we should have let him walk? You see what I'm saying?
That argument, though, is implying that just because he's the best on our team means he's worth the money. To me, that's, again, being the tallest short person in the room. It's like, okay. I'm just making an argument for that side. I don't necessarily believe it. I'm just saying that if I wasn't a Packer fan and I'm looking at this list and I compare it with what they've produced, I would be like, that's not enough. That we didn't get enough ROI.
Here's my point is, so we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We're taking the most productive guy on our defensive line and going, that's not good enough. Get him out of here. our team is way worse without him. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm trying to see it from both sides. And then I know people don't want to hear this, but the answers are on the tape. If you go watch the tape and how we ran that defensive line last year, it was to stop the run. That was the number one goal. And Gary was the absolute best on our defensive line at doing that. So, how many years, Jacob, and this isn't a shot at you. I'm saying fan base in general, me included. We're going, why can't we – how come these other teams figure out this damn run defense and we're always getting ran all over? We finally figure it out, and now we're going, Rashawn Gary's overpaid. You know what I mean? It's like you got to take everything into consideration because he's proven he can pin his ears back and go get the quarterback. His pressure percentage, what was it, like 18% one year or something crazy? But the way we ran our pass rush last year, and the same thing applies to Kenny. Like when you see Kenny's pressure percentage of 6% and you think about his cap hit, this cap hit looks a lot better. Last year it was $27 million. Right? So it was second to only what would have been Jordan Love last year with Kenny. But then you turn on the tape and you go, all right, they've got him playing one tech. It's amazing how many people still don't realize that he's still playing nose. He's playing one tech. He's occupying a double team, and he's playing a touch spy. Like, of course, his pressure percentage is not going to be up. And PFF and everyone else is looking at like, well, that's a pass rush when all he's doing is engaging with a double team, walking a half a yard over to the left and keeping his eyes on the backfield. You know what I mean?
I think that maybe is the point I should have made more clear is that for what we're paying these top four, I don't think we're using them to the best of their talents. Therefore, they're not being worth that money. And I think that, again, that's a front office and a coaching mistake because, like you said, they've told Rashawn to do certain things that aren't in his wheelhouse. I don't know about Alexander that much, but same with Kenny Clark, like you just mentioned. You just kind of force a square peg into a round hole and say, you're good at this, so therefore you must be good at this, where I feel like if the front office and if the coaching staff were really good at what they did, they should have evaluated this is what they're good at. We're paying them top dollar money. Let's let them go out and perform to make that money. Let's not take what they do, try to tweak it, and force them to be a different type of player than they're not, and then try to pay them that money and expect the fan base to be like, oh yeah, it was a good decision.
You see, I mean, and that's I understand what you're saying. That's where we're different, though, is you can take Gary and go, okay, man, you're good at rushing the quarterback. Go rush the quarterback. But we can't complain when the run defense is absolute dog shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. And how many years did we see it happen where teams were just running? I go back to, and I hate to do it, but I go back to the Tommy DeVito game. Joe Barry is the worst DC in the history of the NFL. Did you see what he let Tommy DeVito do? And you go turn on the tape, and we're watching the edge defenders rush 9 yards up the field past him. He just steps up and goes, let's just run the ball, right? They were screaming, play more man coverage while complaining that a quarterback was running 40 yards down the field while the DB's backs were turned to the quarterback. And our edge defenders were told to just rush upfield. And you could see Matt LaFleur made that tweet. I think everything that Jeff Hafley has done was Matt LaFleur's blueprint of here's how I want the defense to run. That's why we didn't see quarterbacks run all over the Packers last year. That's why we seen them truly control the run game. And I felt like our defense took a step forward. Now, if you're saying anybody can do what Rashawn Gary did last year, I wholeheartedly disagree. Like there's not edge defenders falling off trees that can do what Gary did in the run game last year. It was pretty remarkable. Again, the run stop percentage was just the problem with Gary, and the reason his numbers are so low, and people look at the sacks and this and that and the tackles for loss, he's not on the field as much as Max Crosby. I'm sorry, he's not going to be. That's a Matt LaFleur thing, you know. That's not
pronounced Max Crosby.
Sorry. So, again, the way I look at building a roster, if you remove the cap numbers, do you want that guy playing that position? Yes or no? Okay. Now the question becomes for how much. And then when it becomes for how much, the market is what the market is. Like we can let these guys go. We can let Rashawn Gary go. We could have not re-signed Jair Alexander. Now the injury thing, it probably would have made a lot of sense, but hindsight's 20/20 in that regard. I don't know, man. See what Coach Lynn says. Get someone opposite of Gary and watch him take off. See, that's the other thing, and It's the age-old conversation of the chips and this and that. And then you go to this website and they go, no, he wasn't chipped. I'm watching the damn tape and there's two guys walking him across on an ET stunt, which isn't even designed for him to get to the quarterback on that specific play. I think what Hafley did in the adjustment that Matt LaFleur and Hafley both talked about, even Goody talked about in the presser, was they had to make adjustments as the year went on. Hafley had to make adjustments. And I think what he seen was, okay, they're going to take Gary away, and we don't have a pass rusher opposite of him. So, yeah, as Ron Sample says here too, Gary, 9% of the cap is actually good value. Here's what's crazy. We're looking at 2025 when it blimped. Look at last year. We're talking last year's stats compared to this year's cap hit. Look at his cap hit last year. 4% was actually what he was. He led the team in sacks and he led the team in run stops on the defensive line, run stop percentage, and he was only 4% of the cap. Now, this year, different ballgame. It's going to come down to how they call the defense too. You know, Kenny Clark was the big one last year. He ate up 10% of the cap, and you know we got 6% pressure rate. Rashawn Gary also was, I think he was second on the team in quarterback pressure percentage behind a guy named Brenton Cox Jr. But
here's the guy.
The only problem with Brenton Cox Jr. is, as we know, he's not as effective. That's a perfect example. If you put Brenton Cox Jr. in there to play the run stunting that Gary was doing, probably not as good at stopping the run. But that's another guy showing some promise too, though. So anyway, that's let's see what it does in 2026, because the numbers are going to continue to go up, and these will be adjusted, obviously. So Jordan climbs to 11.7%, Kenny goes back up to 10%, and Gary drops down to 9.1 at 28. Or was that? Did he actually raise 9.1 there? Yeah, he drops down a touch the way it's structured in 2026. So, yeah. So there you go. Like Trey Hendrickson's a dog. There's no doubt about it. We talked about him. If you bring him in, that cap number is going to get, you got to give him a new contract. Let's go. Can we go league? I would love to see cap hit league wide. Let me try something here real quick. Let's go cap, player rankings, position rankings, blah, blah, blah. Let's go player rankings. If I can get this to pull up. Give me just a second. I want to see where Gary ranks cap hit wise over the last few years. Let's see, it's kind of the big talking point. We'll just go defensive line in general. All right. And we'll keep it at cap hit here. Let's see how bad it was with Gary in terms of that. So we're going cap hit. Max Crosby in 2025, his cap hit's going to be $38.1 million. You know what's crazy, Jacob? We compared his numbers to Gary's last year. Guess who was better? Rashawn Gary was better. Quarterback pressure percentage by like 3%. Run stop rate by a few percent as well. And Max Crosby played like 98% of the snaps. Gary only played however many it was. Chris Jones, 34.8. Christian Wilkins, 38.5. Let's just go down. These are defensive linemen. Let's see where the first Packer comes into play. Kenny Clark is 18th amongst all defensive linemen. That includes defensive tackles and edge. He's 18th in cap hit. Okay. That was, that's 2025, right? Why ain't Gary popping up on here? Gary should be higher on this list. Here we go. We can break it down. Defensive tackle, Kenny Clark is 11th in cap hit, right? This year. Edge defender, or defensive end, I should say. Let's see if he pops up now. Gary is not popping up. I wonder if they got him listed as a linebacker like a bunch of knuckleheads. Do they? Yeah, they still got him listed as a linebacker. So 25.7. That's the thing, too. You should just have edge. Do we have edge? We got edge, right? Here we go. Gary's the 6th highest cap hit in the league at edge defender this year. Last year, with the numbers we were talking about, Gary at edge was 20th. Yeah. So we'll see what he does this year, And the beautiful thing is are we year 3 of this contract now, Tim? I'm trying to remember, man.
Rashawn?
Yeah, since the extension here.
I think going into year 3. Yeah.
Yeah. So next year, let's say Rashawn falls off a cliff this year, right? Let's say he falls off a cliff. His cap hit next year is $28 million. His dead cap's only $17 million. You could free up $11 million by cutting him next year. That makes sense? So this is kind of the final year of we have to keep him, So if he does hit that wall as he approaches 29 years old, or let's say he plays like he did last year and he's still our best edge defender, all right, and you carry him into keep him through 2026. When you get into 2027, his cap hit jumps to $38 million, but the dead cap attached only 8.5, and there's no voidable years on that either. So to me, that's why I'm on board with what Goody did here. He's structured in a way that when he is 30 years old, you can get out of this like that. Really, at 29 years old, you can get out. So I hope that makes sense. But
Goody being Goody, right?
Yep. Anything else, fellas?
Just maybe for tonight, Fred McFarley brought up a good point. If you haven't already listened to the Mason Crosby's presser, it's definitely worth a listen. Officially retired, I think I saw what he's talking about. I had something in my eye. I wasn't crying. I just had something in both of my eyes. It was weird.
Yeah, I listened to it too, man. It brought back memories. It did. Mason Crosby is a stand-up dude, man, the entire time.
Yep.
Yeah, Ron Samuel, Crosby, all class. It was a blessing to get a chance to meet him. It's a black football that's got gold embroidering on it with a gold G embroidered on it, and actually got him to sign that when I met him in an autograph session. He was just an awesome dude, awesome person for sure, man. Let's see here. What else we got? Fred McFarley agreed. Sounds like NBA cap management. I don't know what he was referring to there. Do you guys remember what he was talking about there?
That was when we were talking about the Bengals top four being over 50% of their roster.
Ron Samuel says you can't have a team full of all 5 million.
Why not, Ron?
Jacob said, yes, we can.
Yes, we can. They just won't win any games. Yeah.
The Dollar Tree is a real place, my friend. All right. And then Drew D giving us a little tip here. He said, I had some Paxies from, say it for me, Tim,
Samara's Bakery
the other day. So good. So there you go. Put that bakery on the list.
We might have to swing through there during the draft. That's going to be in our neck of the woods over there, by the house.
I'm wearing cargo shorts. I'm going to have cannolis in my pocket. Is that a cannoli in your pocket? Or are you just happy to see me?
It's a cannoli, actually.
It's a cannoli? Yes, it is. Would you like powdered sugar? Have that in the back pocket. All right, boys, this was fun, man. I didn't expect to get into a lot of contract talk, but I love those type of conversations. I try not to steer it in that direction because I know people get bored with it, but it's important to understand how the cap works, at least to a certain level. You ain't got to know everything about it. I don't know everything about it, but I know enough to understand, all right, here's kind of the direction we're going in. And Jacob, I understand the frustration there with the cap hit on Gary. I just always, and the same thing with Jordan. Like, Jordan was not a top 5 quarterback last year. Now, battling 3 injuries all year long, basically, right? But the alternative is, okay, don't re-sign him. Me no likey that, Jan. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, obviously I'm a diehard Packer fan. I'm just more creating a conversation. It'd be boring if we all sat here and just went, I agree. I agree. It's just more, it's a good conversation to have. It's an uncomfortable conversation to have, but I think those are the ones we need to have.
Yeah. We need to get Doge in there. Tim, what do you think would happen if Elon and the Doge boys walked up to 1265? Think they let them in the door?
I hope not, because there'd be a lot of people getting fired.
All right. That's it, y'all. Appreciate you hanging out with us. We will be back tonight, 7 p.m. Central. Didn't plan on doing a double episode this morning, but this was fun, man. There's a lot of good conversating going on. Ron Samuel, fun show, guys. Thanks. Go Pack, go. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. Coach Lynn said they'd never let Doge in the house. Never. Look at this. Drew D. Oh, I'm sorry. No, Chris N.
There you go.
5 million times 51 equals 255 million. Technically, they could.
That's what I'm saying, bro.
Equals 3 wins.
Yeah. Tommy DeVito on the cover of your weekly program, right? For sure. So, all right. Everybody have a great day. And this glorious Saturday. It's beautiful out here, man. I'm going to go out here and burn some brush and, hang out and just waste time doing things like that with a can of gas out there. Just
sit your butt outside.
There's no show tonight. You know it went wrong, okay? We'll see you on the other side if that's the case. Y'all have a great day. Hit that like button on the way out. Appreciate it.
There we go. We out.
All right.
We out.
Bye, guys.